Okay, good afternoon and welcome. I'm Tracy Maleeff. I'm also known as InfoSec Sherpa on Twitter, in case you know me. This talk, information literacy makes for better information security. Now, if you turn to your hymnal, page 23, you'll be able to read the American Library Association's definition of information literacy. So what I want to talk about today is I just want to help you all, with my library science background, to be better consumers and better disseminators of information. I'm going to be using that phrase a lot because I want to burn it into your brain, okay? So a couple notes here. This is going to be a very Philly-centric talk. Sorry, not sorry. We will have some opportunities along the way, I hope, to give out prizes. So I have Goldenberg's peanut shoes. If you know, you know. These are awesome. And yeah, I just really want to give this talk today because I feel passionate about this topic. You know, again, you probably already know, people are probably sick of hearing me saying it, but I was a librarian for 15 years. I have a master's degree of library and information science. So this is something that I care very much about, and I also just wanted to share that again in case people are like, well, who does she think she is? Well, I'm a librarian, damn it, who now works in cybersecurity. Oh, and yes, I am a security researcher for the Krebs Stamos Group, and I actually utilize a lot of my information security and library science skills there. And I worked in, I don't know if am I allowed to call it a SOC anymore after the last Sean's talk, I'm not sure. But I actually had 2 SOC experiences prior to this. So I do have technical experience along with my library science and along with the other work that I do now. So that is my street cred for you. All right, let's first cover some ground here. What this talk isn't. First, it is not a debate, okay? So I'm not going to be taking any questions from the audience unless I ask you. So speak when spoken to, people, okay? And then what this also isn't is I'm really not trying to make any political commentary or make any statements or anything. You may roll your eyes at some things that I say, but that's your problem, not mine. I'm really just trying to share good tactics and mindsets of how to consume and give information. So what this talk is, it's a guide to, again, I told you I'm going to be repeating it. I was going to make bingo cards for this talk, but I realized that was a little bit too much extra even for me. So again, I want you to be better consumers of information and better disseminators of information. That's all this talk is. So don't try to look and think that I'm pushing an agenda or anything. I'm just pushing common sense. And then this talk is also a nice place to sit for 30 minutes. So if you really don't care what I have to say, just welcome. You might get a piece of candy out of it. All right, so of course the obligatory, my thoughts and comments are my own and not those of my employer, nor are they the thoughts of any organizations with which I'm affiliated. That's a fancy way of saying, if you don't like something that I say in my talk, bring it up with me later, afterwards, and the price to talk to me about this is the gin and tonic, so be prepared. That is how I will engage with you. Okay, so what are we talking about here? So pick your poison. Information can be poison, right? Information can be helpful and it can be hurtful. So you got your misinformation, you got your disinformation, you got your malinformation. So quick show of hands, who's heard of the term misinformation before? Excellent. All right, who's heard of disinformation? Excellent. How about malinformation? Yeah, less hands. Okay, awesome. So I'm going to explain what all of those are. So these are your standard definitions of that. Oh, and the good folks at CISA have now abbreviated this to MDM because believe me, if you try to say misinformation, disinformation, malinformation 3 times fast, it's impossible, and if you say it a lot, you jumble your words. So from now on, MDM is this, and that's not a club drug and it's not anything kinky. So it's misinformation, disinformation, malinformation. So what I'm going to do is, so I'm not going to read the slides. You all can read, I presume. If not, please see me and I'll get you help. These are the definitions. You think you might understand, but I'm going to show you some examples of what this really means. Here's an example of misinformation. That I'm gritty. Breaking news, Tracy is gritty. She reveals it me. I wish that were true. But that's misinformation, right? It's not real, it's false, but it's also not necessarily harmful, right? I could laugh this off, like, haha, yeah, right, I'm gritty. So that's an example of misinformation. And this could go a couple ways, right? This could just be fun and not be a big deal, or it could go down a slippery slope, right? And turn into something more disastrous, as we'll see here. Disinformation. Tracy is gritty, burns down the world. She's out of control. Save yourselves. Breaking news. How quickly did that get out of hand, right? That escalated quickly. So yeah, things can then be turned into disinformation. You may already be familiar with that meme of gritty in the flames. What could that mean? That could mean something fun, or that could mean that I'm inside a gritty suit trying to burn down the world. That's disinformation. That's harmful, right? That's harmful to my reputation, to my well-being. And then we look at malinformation. Tracy's not gritty at all. She's really a basketball fan, hates gritty, hates hockey, hates you. So let's talk about malinformation. Malinformation is based on fact, but it's used out of context. Yes, it is true. I like the Sixers. I am a basketball fan. But I still like hockey and I still like gritty. They're not mutually exclusive. But look how this true information that seems innocuous can be turned around into something bad. So now what are they trying to do? The CBC Sports is trying to turn all the gritty lovers against me. Look how easy that happened. It went from, haha, oh my God, that's so funny, to, whoa, Tracy is unhinged. She's burning stuff down. And then, oh my God, that Tracy, she hates gritty. She hates us. Oh my God. You get it? Misinformation, disinformation, malinformation. It can get out of hand really quickly. All right. So you're like, okay, great, lady. You like sports. Big deal. Okay. So here are my talking points here. So information can help, but it can also hurt. So my wish for all of you is to leave this talk as more savvy, critical thinking consumers of information and responsible disseminators of information. Now, I know that there's a lot in our community who take pride in, pardon my language, shit posting, but kind of like the ads for casinos, win big jackpots, gamble responsibly. Fine, I'm not telling you not to shit post, but please shit post responsibly. That's really all I'm asking. But to kind of turn this into more of our, milieu here, think of it as OPSEC. You wouldn't share true information that could compromise someone or something, would you? Don't share false or ambiguous information that could also jeopardize someone or something. To me, it's as simple as that. If you're still having trouble connecting the dots between information literacy and information security, let me break it down this way. You don't want to be making important security decisions on bad data or flawed intelligence. That could mean in the heat of the moment of incident response, or a status report that goes to upper management. Once your decisions or reports leave your hands, you don't necessarily know where that information goes and what decisions it's being used to make. Being information literate means that you can confidently stand by your work, whether that information product is used to make C-suite level decisions or just a playbook for your team. And that's why I'm so passionate about this. Information matters, and information illiteracy impacts all of us. So what are my tips on this? I promise some tools and tips. So we're going to practice some ice cube sec. You're going to check yourself before you wreck yourself, okay? I want everybody to keep that in mind when you're reading and disseminating information. Check yourself before you wreck yourself. If you're not going to listen to Ice Cube, then A, we can't be friends, and B, it's just smart. It's just absolutely smart. So what are some tips? Okay, so first of all, provenance. While this is a gorgeous photo of France, that's Provence. Provolone is a creamy Italian cheese that is delicious on a hoagie. But I'm talking about provenance. That means the origin of information. Where is this information coming from? So I'll give you a good example. A lot of times, a local news service, TV or newspaper, will republish an Associated Press or a Reuters wire story. I have seen this too many times where the local news is now editing The Wire story, they're leaving things out, they're adding things in. So you're really not getting the full story anymore, but you don't know that because they're citing the attribution of the AP Wire. So it's understandable that you would take it, oh, okay, they're just copy and pasting the AP Wire. Not necessarily, if you look at them side by side. So what I want you to do, if you click on an article, if you're reading something and you see that it's by whatever source it's from, and they tell you very clearly that it's a Wire article, stop what you're doing. Go, just Google the title of the article or go to the Associated Press Wire website. Look at it from the source. That's what I ask, is because that way, now again, this is why there's some slippery slopes here. I'm not going to say that the information is right as far as like, left or right or politics. I'm just saying go to the source, because I believe the Associated Press Wire over some other site that I may never even heard of, or some local news that may be editing it to get their own agenda across. So go to the source, think provenance, and also look at it. If you're looking at some weird blogs, well, where are they getting their information from? Are they citing sources? And that's important. So think provenance and think lovely fields of lavender. So another thing that's very important to me, so one, I really wanted to use this Flavor Flav photo, but I also want to talk about the importance of time and date when looking at articles. Now, obviously date is important, right? Because you want to know when it was written. And time is important because especially for instances like a data breach or a war or something, other breaking news, you could have a story that was published 15 minutes ago that's already outdated. That's already bad information. And what I really love, and I give extra points to the organizations that will show you when they originally published it and then the time of when they updated it. It's like, yes. So that's really important. Think about that when you're reading information of when was this posted and how long ago was it, because things move fast, right? If you're looking at an article at the end of the day that was from 9 a.m., so much could have happened during the day. And keep that in mind. So you might be looking at old information. Now, that information might be good for historical context, and notice 7 hours is historical anymore, right? Because how quick does information move? So I'm not saying that you shouldn't read it at all, because that might be a good base, right? But don't write a report or don't give advice based on something that's 7 hours old. Because, like milk sitting out on the counter all day, that news is spoiled. That is just not good news. All right, everybody get a little bit of your OSINT on. This photo was making the rounds on Twitter maybe about 4 weeks ago, I think. And yes, it's, people want to show their support for Ukraine, which I'm not objecting to, but they're using an old photo to do it. So they're kind of emotionally manipulating you. So if the photo here is two young kids, one of them is saluting, it's tanks presumably filled with, because again, I don't really even know much more about this photo, so I'm going to say presumably filled with Ukrainian soldiers on a Ukrainian tank. And yeah, it's cute and sweet and sentimental, but it's from 2016, people. It has nothing to do with the current situation. And I got a little bit too Philly, and I just decided to take on replying to people who were posting this, saying this is from 2016. So yeah, that's not really the great way to do that. So then I put my own post up here of like, look everyone, this is from 2016. I just did a simple reverse image search. It took me 2 seconds, and there were so many different sources that posted it from 2016. And so of course the backlash I got was, you're ruining fun, there's no harm in it. It's a slippery slope, come on. I showed you, I went from Tracy's gritty to Tracy hates all of you in 3 slides. So like I said, I think that people always think to themselves, well, there's no harm in this. Girl, there is harm in everything, okay? So this is what I want you to be mindful of. Be mindful of when things were posted, date, time, who posted it, was it reposted, was it reshared? So I'm gonna leave it to Allen Iverson. We're talking about citations. We're not talking about practice, we're talking about citations. Quick show of hands, who knows this reference? Come get a piece of candy from me later. This is later, not later. I know it's good candy, but just wait. So we're talking about citations here. Now, I know some of you might be having some flashbacks from school of like, oh my gosh, I don't want to put this information in the proper, I don't know which way to properly list the author and all that stuff. I'm just asking you to be mindful of the contents of a citation. And there's the different kinds here. Did you know that different disciplines have their different ways of citing information? So, literature, foreign languages, they use MLA, IEE, engineering. So it's not that I want you to memorize this and memorize the formats. I just want you to think about the ingredients. What goes into this? So as you're reading something, does this have a date? Does this have a time? Do I know where it's coming from? So, and then when you're sharing information, honestly, now past me would cringe at this, but honestly, right now me, I really don't care if it's in the right citation format. If you just have the information of where you got something from, you know what, you're cool in my book, okay? I get really aggravated when I see people presenting things without citations. Now, you're probably looking at my slides going, okay, hypocrite. These are all hyperlinked with my citations. When I post them for public consumption, I will make it clearer, but I just wanted to look pretty. My citations are there, but for the purposes of this demonstration, they are embedded. So I just want you to think about citations. And another way to think about it is real easy. You want your who, what, where, when, why, how. This is just a simple thing to keep in mind as you're reading or as you're sending information. Are you hitting all these points? Are all these points necessary? Is there anything you're leaving out? I give a talk called Empathy as a Service to Create a Culture of Security. And one of the tips I always give is listen to what the end users are not saying. So here, when you read an article, what's not being presented? Is the why not being presented? Is the why being speculated, or is it being cited to another source? So again, this really isn't a heavy lift. It's just something like you get used to with, as Alan Iverson said previously on a slide, practice. You get used to it with practice, and this makes you a better consumer of information and makes you information literate. So I want to give a kudos to the Register. So not only do I know where it's coming from the Register, and it was written by Ian Thompson. He's a great dude, by the way, my Twitter friend Ian. You can follow me, he's at Ian Thompson there. And then the Register always puts the date and time and the time zone. I hate when stories post the time, but they don't say what time zone. Okay, well that's great. Is it Sydney time? Is it, Istanbul time? What time zone was it? Because again, this matters. Now this also lists Ian as being in San Francisco. Now, depending on what you're looking into, this could matter. So for example, this is a tech article, so you might ration in your mind of, okay, well, he's in San Francisco, he's adjacent to Silicon Valley, he's probably in tune with all this stuff. Maybe. And that's not to say that somebody in Topeka wouldn't be tuned into tech stuff, but think about it more like geopolitical. If somebody's writing an article and they show that they're based somewhere, that's going to affect their point of view and their bias, right? So it's just something to consider. Where is this person writing the article from? And just keep that in mind. So now we're going to transition into some of the tools that I think will help you better kind of get to the bottom of wiping out disinformation and misinformation. And I said tools. Sorry, I had to do that. All right. Also, so quick show of hands, who's old like me and knows what that logo is with the cat? All right, old people, get your other candy from me. Youngins, Google it. I'm not going to spend time explaining it. So the first resource I want to broadcast is our friends at CISA. They have created, and I want to make sure everybody knows, cisa.gov/MDM, all kinds of resources. They have this great one here. Disinformation stops with you. They have this 2-page PDF with all kinds of tips. You could even laminate it if you wish. And, when's the next gift-giving holiday? Give it out to your friends and family. This is a very user-friendly resource that's easy for everyone to understand, and also a reminder for you. So their whole site is really wonderful. Please check it out. I'm really just a big fan of CISA in general, and has nothing to do with where I currently work. Thank you for those of you who got that. But yeah, this is my #1 go-to tool that I want to share with you is go to CISA.gov MDM. There's a lot of tools there, and I just wanted to show this one. They have so much more. So another one, this only came out like the other day, so honestly, I don't have much more information to share about this, but President Biden has stated that he wants this Disinformation Governance Board to be created under Homeland Security. That is pretty much all I have to say and talk and show about that. I know that some people are voicing their opposition to this. All I'm going to say about that is ask why. Why are they so afraid of information literacy becoming part of the government? And that's the most I'll get into politics in this talk. But keep an eye out for this, coming soon to disinformation near you, this governance board that is going to help you navigate these choppy waters. All right, so yes, I am going to post these slides, but just to let you know, I have some tools here. So yes, of course I have the American Library Association, why wouldn't I? But yes, libraries are a great source, and librarians are a great source to get help with this. So if you want to talk to someone one-on-one, hit up your local library. Don't even get me started. I have a whole hour talk that I could give about the value of public libraries. Maybe hit up your local library and just ask. What do you recommend, or do you have tools? Maybe don't put them on the spot of like, tell me what to do. Maybe say, do you have any sources you can recommend that I could look into about recognizing disinformation? And, I want something for my kids. Is there a children's librarian here who can help with that? Because also you need to start your kids young, right? We were talking earlier about starting kids young with cybersecurity skills. Well, start to teach them young about recognizing bad information. Just quick true story, when I was a kid in the 80s, and please raise your hand if you also heard this too, the rumor going around was that you could get AIDS from mosquitoes. I absolutely remember. Does anybody else remember that? Yeah, so you're outside at night as a kid trying to have fun catching lightning bugs, and it's like, oh, watch out, there's mosquitoes, you're gonna get AIDS. I'm like, you need to be able to teach the kids to understand and stand up for themselves. I don't think what you're saying is true. I think you're spreading some fibs, and because that's how kids talk these days. But no, empower your kids to be critical of information, because again, then they're going to grow up, and that stuck with me. That stuck with all this time. I didn't forget it because it was so traumatizing. So anyway, I don't need to read through all of these, but I just want to point out there's a lot of great resources out there. And the other one I just wanted to point out real quick is you see the Pointer Institute's MediaWise and MediaWise en Español. One of the problems is a lot of non-English speakers are being targeted specifically for disinformation. You can just easily look up stories about the Latina community. There's a lot of COVID vaccine disinformation purposely being spread to them. I know in India, there's a lot of issues with disinformation going on. So as bad as you might think it might be in English, there's also groups of non-English speakers that are being targeted. And that's not fair. I mean, people, especially when it comes to COVID, people die. People have died from believing this disinformation that was targeted to them, and that's criminal. So again, if any of you have people who would better understand this information in their native language, look for it online. And that's another point that I share just with security talks too. If you have a user base that's in Latin America or in South America, are you giving them your security protocols as a company to follow in English and expecting them to fully understand it? Are you translating those materials into Spanish and Portuguese? Same thing with this. All these warnings need to also come in their own languages, because expecting someone whose fourth language is English to fully understand these nuances of this complicated topic is just really unfair and a disservice to them. So be mindful that there should be, and we need more translators to help with this, to get more information out in other non-English languages. So long, farewell, auf Wiedersehen, adieu. So I want to give you a couple parting thoughts here. I hope this was useful and helpful. We have about 5 minutes left, so I think I will have time for some questions and some candy distribution, or just candy distribution if nobody has questions. So 2 things I want you to think about. I have these 2 slides here I want you to think about. So first, you better think about what you're trying to put out into the world when it comes to information. So I want you to think. Now, this doesn't apply to every situation, but it could if you think about it. Is what you're reading or what you're putting out there, is it true? Is it helpful? Are you adding to noise? You might think that you're helping. Well, I'm going to help save the world if I retweet this article about Ukraine. Are you just adding to the noise? Like, really? Are you really helping? And also putting out information. Oh, my hot take on this is going to save the world. Is it? Is it really? So think, are you being helpful? Is it inspiring? Now, some of the news that we share isn't particularly uplifting. So maybe you can think about inspiring in a different way. Is this providing a call to action to change something? Because that could be inspiring, right? Because a lot of times I think people see inspiring and they think warm fuzzies. Inspiring can also get somebody off their butt to do something, like stop spreading disinformation. Is it necessary? Again, are you adding to the problem? I don't know about you, but I want to be part of the solution, not part of the problem. So is it really necessary to share your hot take on the Johnny Depp trial? I don't think so. I really don't think so. And is it kind? And again, you can think of kind different ways. You know, are you slandering someone? Or, you know, is it, you know, again, this is all kind of tied together. So I want you to think: true, helpful, inspiring, necessary, kind. And then the last thing I want you to think about is, do we have any RuPaul Drag Race fans here? Woohoo! If you'll remember RuPaul's Drag Race Season 2, Episode 1, the lovely Tatiana gave a spoken word presentation called All the Same Parts. And one of the best lines was, because what you see isn't always the truth. So please heed to our Lord and Savior, Tatiana, and remember that everything you see online isn't always the truth. So thanks, hon. I'm in Balmer. Thank you. Looks like I have 2 minutes and 25 seconds for questions or candy distribution. Any questions? Yes, sir.
You were saying check the date and time because things may have changed over the last time. Isn't there also a risk of, like, you catch the article 5 minutes after a breaking event that it doesn't have all the pieces yet? You have to weigh that with waiting a while and checking it later?
Yeah, I'm just putting it out there because I want people to be mindful of the date and time. And yes, if something is developing, then yes, go back and see something updated. I just don't, I understand your question, but I'm just saying I just threw that out there because I don't know that people particularly pay attention to the time that things were posted and put that in context of the event. Oh, and what I was going to say too is, I forgot to mention this earlier, I hate it. I wasn't going to call anybody out, Tech Target, but some publications do not put a date or time on at all. I've actually had to look at source code, which is that like a felony in Missouri now? I don't know, where did that land? I've actually had to look at source code for an article that I really wanted to use because I really wanted to get to the point of, well, when was this posted? If I have to look at your source code, you are doing a terrible job as a news disseminator. So, like, I'm not going to jail for looking at a date, you know? I mean, that's just ridiculous. So, anyway, yeah, I just want to say this. I just want to put, I just want to give the context of it. There is a good reason to pay attention to the date and time. But thank you for your question. Anyone else? Y'all just want candy? Hi, hon. Yes. Oh, why don't you come up? So he's going to give a tip, and I want everyone to hear it. So why don't you come up here? And I'll give you a piece of paper.
Some of the things I usually do are look for earliest sources, and then corroborating multiple sources, and then also looking at who funded.
I forgot.
Funded those things?
Sorry, I'm glad you mentioned that. Sorry, this is my first time speaking in person in over 2 years, and I've been completely stressed out about this, and I completely forgot. Thank you. Here, open that. Get your own damn candy. Oh my God, I forgot my Kobe Bryant story. Okay, so the day of the Kobe Bryant's, thank you, helicopter accident, I was on a train to New York, and I started seeing in my Twitter feed, oh, that's me telling me to shut up. Sorry, let me just finish the story real quick. The other guy in front of me ran over too. So I was on the train looking at my Twitter feed, and I started seeing people mentioning Kobe. But I was like, I don't know, like this easily seems like it could be a rumor and whatnot. So I remembered that TMZ really actually is a really good resource when it comes to celebrity and LA-based news. So I went to TMZ's website and I saw that they were reporting it. But I checked other places and they weren't reporting it yet. And I wanted to say something because I grew up in the same county that Kobe was from. He went to Lower Merion High School and I went to a rival high school. So of course I wanted to share my thoughts with the world because I think we passed in high school at some point or something like that. Anywho, but also I wanted to know whether or not it was true. So I kept checking these other sources, kept checking. So what I normally do is, and some of you might be thinking, ain't nobody got time for that, okay? But listen, it really doesn't take that long. I triangulate. So I already had TMZ, and I kept checking, and then CNN came through, and then they were referencing TMZ, like what the gentleman was just talking about. And then CBS finally reported it, and then they were citing TMZ and other sources, and then citing the sheriff and all this stuff. That's when I was like, okay, this is true, so damn, sorry, R.I.P. Kobe. But then I felt comfortable proceeding to then tell people, like I texted my husband, like, did you see this Kobe news? So this is just what I do personally about triangulation, which I believe is what you're getting at, sir. You also got into another level, which is a little bit too deep for this talk, was like who funds things. That's a talk for another time, but thank you for bringing it up and reminding people. So I will hush now. Thank you all for coming. I really appreciate it. I hope this was worth your time. Thanks.